What we have next is a really exciting panel called Digital Wellbeing. And Hilary Williams-Dunlap is going to be your wonderful moderator. Everyone hold up their phones. Let's take your digital well-being temperature. Does anyone not have a phone? Because you've made a mistake. All right. Hilary is the Senior VP of Talent at Digital Brand Architects, and she's awesome, and she has 3 awesome women with her, so let's get them up here.
Woo! Hi, everyone. I'm Hilary Williams-Dunlap, SVP of Talent at DBA. I have the pleasure of working with some of these amazing ladies that you're going to hear from today. But DBA is a talent management agency. We represent amazing content creators in all different verticals. We also have a podcasting division, Dear Media, Create and Cultivate, our conference series, and a products division, DBP. So thanks for having me. I'm really excited. And I have the pleasure of talking to these incredible women. To my right, we have Jennifer Musselman, the CEO of BGlam, the co-CEO of BGlam, the leading on-demand beauty service app in North America, and the co-founder of the Center Method, a one-stop wellness boutique, studio, and media brand, where you offer psychotherapy, massages, fitness classes, all good things. 3-time published self-help book author as well. So, very happy to have you here. Next, we have Emily Schuman, the founder of the blog and brand Cupcakes and Cashmere. Her amazing clothing line can be found at Shopbop and Neiman Marcus, and in over 500 boutiques across the country. She's also a best-selling author, a mom, girl boss, all good things. So we're happy to have her. And last, we have Geri Hirsch, the powerhouse creative behind Because I'm Addicted. And Geri really focuses on health and wellness and beauty and family and all good things that fall under that umbrella. She also started LEAFtv in 2009 and sold it in 2015. So she is also a boss bitch, if I can say that, at this conference. So here we are, talking about the digital world and the 24/7 effects that it has on all of us, which I think is an amazing topic of conversation. So Jennifer, we'll start with you. As a licensed therapist and expert in the field, how do you feel digital media is impacting women and girls today?
I think it's both good and has its drawbacks, right? So positively, as you just heard from the panel before you and other issues that people, women and men face, it normalizes it if people are willing to sort of go publicly with it on their social spaces. And it makes you feel like you're not in it alone. It helps you find education and information if you're encountering something similar. It also has its drawbacks. I see it in working with people in my psychotherapy suite and practice. People develop anxiety about not being good enough, feeling inadequate, not feeling interesting enough because other people's posts seem like they're at the most amazing, wonderful parties and they're not. Or they don't have enough interest, and so it impedes on their dating lives and their ability to successfully interview. And it creates, depression. And it can, if some people, really only look to their social media platforms to connect, which is great that they look to social media to connect, but it also is disconnection if that's the only place they're getting their connectivity. And they really need to take more of an effort to go from online to offline to connect in their communities.
Well, I think you touch on an interesting point, which is this Instagram versus reality and what's really real and how that affects us. So, Emily, just day-to-day, going through your feed and looking at other influencers and other companies and all these things, how does that affect your day-to-day and your team's day-to-day?
I think there's this notion that if you work in this space and you have some sort of influence, that you are somehow, immune to feeling those thoughts of inadequacy and comparing yourself to others, or feeling jealous, or comparing yourself in ways that aren't really productive. But that's certainly not the case, and I think in ways it's even exacerbated. I started Cupcakes and Cashmere in 2008 when it was really just all about the blog. Social media was not part of it, and now, especially I think with the introduction of stories on Instagram, it's like you have to have like a documentary of your life that's like streaming 24 hours a day. So I feel like for me, taking those breaks is really, really important. And anytime I start feeling just like yucky about it, I put my phone down. And that's like a really good, just like very simple step, but it reminds me that when my phone is down, I can focus on the things that really matter, my friends, my family, and just being present.
And Geri is celebrating her daughter's 1-year birthday tomorrow, Leo Gem, just so exciting. And I'd love to just hear from you, even introducing your daughter and how that, bringing that into your feed. And when you looked at others, was there kind of this FOMO moment where you're looking at other people, traveling and you're still, working and building your brand and have a child and you're still doing all the same things, but is there ever that feeling of FOMO? And also even introducing your daughter into that world, how have you set boundaries for yourself, but also maintained the mindset that, okay, this is gonna be okay?
Yeah, so I actually wrote a blog post and spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to be a mom and share that part of my life, because I'm sensitive to the fact that I'm starting a social graph for another person without their consent. And I don't really know how she's going to feel about that at some point later in her life, if she Googles herself and isn't comfortable with what I've shared. So I really try to keep it to a minimum if possible. I share her a little bit on stories, and when you see photos of her, you kind of see more of an essence of a baby as opposed to like front and center, this is Leo, this is what she's doing. She does lots of things that I don't share all of the time. And we're taking it day by day. I don't know if once she's a toddler and more aware of the phone, if I'll share her at all. We kind of have to see how it's starting to affect her mental health. I don't want her to be aware of the camera. I don't want her starting to perform in any way. I don't know the long-term effects of those things. In terms of FOMO, I actually had a really challenging time when she was born, because it was the first time in my life where I wasn't trying to be a girl boss. I had sold my business and then I got pregnant, and I would go on social media and I would see all my contemporaries raising money or at meetings and doing all these amazing things, and I had to do a lot of soul searching to separate my heart from my ego and say to myself, you know what, I actually really do want to be a mom right now. I don't really want to be figuring out what that next business is and leaving my child. And I made the choice to step back and fully invest myself in motherhood, but it didn't come easy because of screen time and seeing what everybody else is doing. But it was the right choice for me.
And how often do you feel like when and how often do you feel like you're making, it's for either of you, making those comparisons or seeing other people? When does it manifest itself? And why do you think it does?
I actually think comparison's really healthy in a lot of ways. I think it elevates us all to be better versions of ourselves. I think competition is wonderful. If you look at like Usain Bolt, like if he wasn't comparing himself to the other fastest man in the world, he wouldn't be the other fastest. So I think there's a lot of positives that come with it. But if it does impact you negatively, I think that's when you should reach for your tools, which are like on Instagram, you can mute stories and you can mute people. I'm a huge advocate of that because I think there's a lot of sensitivity with the unfollow, and that can hurt other people's feelings, so careful with that. If you're going through a hard time, like if you just had a miscarriage or you're having problems with fertility, you can turn off certain ads on Instagram so you don't see baby stuff, which is another great tool. And then the screen time app, I'm all about it. I think everyone, if you haven't tonight, you should go home and you should pull up your screen time app and really review where you're spending your time and how much of it you're spending. And for me, I set limitations around it because I don't want to spend too much time comparing myself and feeling bad. Instead, I want to be practicing gratitude every day and saying, this is what I'm grateful for.
And the ice roller. Also that you promote is the other thing that I've been
really grateful
and the
for.
time, both of those things are really important, just saying. Jennifer, how have you found that mental health and social media, talk to me a little bit about that correlation and why it's so common. And why it's so common.
These ladies did a great job of articulating it. We live in a society where, I mean, it's always been like keeping up with the Joneses. It's not new to digital media. It's just we're playing it out in digital media. So when we compare ourselves is one thing, and it's different than trying to emulate or have an aspiration, right? So comparing leads to low self-esteem, body image issues, things like that. What you're talking about, where it's healthy, is saying, I aspire to be like that. What is she doing? What could I be doing that's more? That's healthy. So it's how we're I think part of it is if you already have like a lack of sense of self, it's not gonna get better by just watching what everybody else is doing. It's gonna make you feel worse. But if you come to it with already feeling confident, truly strong, then you can use it as a platform to become better. I mentioned earlier social anxiety. It's something I find that people develop because they start feeling like they really are inadequate. But you guys touched on some other great things too. It's like you've established boundaries. Boundaries are really important. I say brand with boundaries. And that includes, setting the phone down or choosing to use platforms that allow you to do it. I'm going to do this between 10 and 12 today so I can be present with my partner or my child for the rest of the day. And you find other tools to help you to maximize the rest of the day or the rest of the week. I also think that, and this would just be something I propose to the community at large, when I worked at Nickelodeon before I got into beauty and wellness, we used to do a day where we would say, turn off your TV, so that we would encourage kids to not actually watch our brand. And I actually think it would be a great pro-social campaign if all the bloggers would band together for 24 or 48 hours and say, we're turning off our digital media, a digital detox. Not for long, but just to come together as a community the way you have here and say, this is just because we think we should have 24 or 48 hours to just you do you and be present with your real life and make it an annual event.
Thank you. Emily, you've talked about very openly about your struggle with anxiety and social media and throwing your whole life out there for people to see. You've been doing it for over 10 years, which is amazing. But what are your triggers? How have you set your own boundaries? How are you dealing with that on a day-to-day basis? What's your strategy and all that?
Yeah, so I think for me as an influencer, there's a certain amount of responsibility that I have to be candid and open about what's really happening in my life. I think on one level, I try to make things look really beautiful and curated and aspirational yet attainable, but I think there's a whole other side of it that I've come to realize that it's really important to share as well. So I have opened up about struggles when I was breastfeeding my daughter and with my anxiety and self-doubt and jealousy, all of those things that I think sometimes people look at me thinking, oh wow, she has it all together. And the reality is I don't. Nobody really does, and I think that's a really important conversation to have. And so I found that anytime I am starting to feel those things, I open up. It doesn't happen that often, but anytime I'm worried about being so vulnerable and open with my audience, it's always rewarded in the sense that I don't feel as alone. And I know that I'm bringing a lot of solace to other people in that they see all of these glossy images on my Instagram and on the blog, and they're reminded as well that I'm a real person struggling with the same things as everyone else.
We talk about mental health and social media, but what are the other ways you're taking care of yourself, whether it's through fitness or through food and going out with your husband or whatever it is, or different classes? What other ways are you guys managing your mental health beyond the platform?
Well, I just opened a wellness center in Santa Monica, and we're planning to scale that. So, and the reason we did this, my business partner and I, is because we want people to recognize the integration of mind, body, and spirit. And because people seek out a therapist, if they do, in one location, and then their fitness soul cycle over here, and then their acupuncture or massage over there, if they do, they don't recognize the value or the importance of actually one literally feeds the other. And for me, the reason that I created Center Method is because I want people to be more mindful of that it is all together. So for me, we do all different types of yoga sculpt, yoga bar, but also what was really important to me was to incorporate kids, because you guys know better than anyone, you don't just get a sitter necessarily very easily and not inexpensively to go do your self-care. So we do baby dance, where the moms are strapping the babies to their chest and they are dancing and getting connection and community with each other, with the other moms, because I know that that's super isolating a lot of the times when you're a new mom. So it's self-care that fits within your lifestyle. right? So whether it is eating or bringing the baby with you to have community with your girlfriends who understand what you're going through, going to a therapist to talk it out, that's another methodology. And by the way, I just want to mention, though this is primarily females in the room, I work with men, and it's important for you guys to know that men go through this too. And they're literally coming to me to talk to me about their female partners, speaking heterosexually. They come to their female partner to complain about the fact that their female partners are always on their phone when they're trying to connect with them at dinner time. And they're feeling isolated. And men don't have the same social connection that we have. And so it's especially important that if any of you are partnered with one, that you pay mindful attention to the fact that, hey, I want to be present for this person and do what these ladies are talking about. I'm also very clear about my motivation when it comes to digital media. If I go to grab for my phone, I take a minute and I say, why am I doing this? What's my motivation? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I'm, looking to just see what my competition is doing? Is it because it's that time that I've given to myself between 2 and 4 to really hone my brand? And okay, then that's the perfect time to do it. So I think checking yourself, like connecting to yourself and saying, what's my motivation before you start dialing for dollars, if you will, is really important to your self-care as well.
Just to add to your self-care question, I think self-care is as much as what you do as much as it is what you don't do. So for me, whether that's disengaging from a toxic relationship or saying no to a lot of things, or not having a scale in the bathroom because it makes me crazy, or not using my phone because it's giving me anxiety. All of that is just as important as the working out, as the eating clean, all of it. Almost more so in many ways, because that exacerbates all the negative thinking.
I'm a really big fan of self-care, and I think in some ways it's now like self-care means like bubble baths and face masks, and I think it can be much more beyond that. And I think it's really identifying what makes you happy and what really helps you deal with things that you're struggling with. So for me, I see a therapist once a week, and it's a very big investment, and I feel like it's the best investment that I can make in myself for who I am, for my daughter, for my husband, for everyone around me. It's just such...
Do you have the $11 ice roller?
I
Jerry,
don't.
Jerry, tell us about the ice roller and calming your anxiety.
I'm sure it's a much more affordable and effective tool that I do need to look into.
If you guys don't know about the ice roller, which you should, I'm just going to take 1 second to talk about it. It is calming. It actually does not only calm your skin, but also it's a soothing method for your face. Just saying.
I need to look into it.
Jerry's the one who talks about it, not me.
So yeah, therapy I think is really important, and I think it's a little bit of a taboo subject. I remember when I first started sharing that I was going to therapy, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I've got a lot of stuff that's wrong with me, but it's good to talk about it, and it's good to, challenge yourself and make progress. Go for daily walks. Like I don't do any crazy soul cycle. Like I'm not a big fitness person at this point in my life." But I go for daily walks, or I do meditation. I love the Headspace app. So I think it's just paying attention to what makes you feel good. If I've had a bad day, ordering in makes me feel a lot happier. So that it's just it isn't just like a one size fits all. It's figuring out what works best for you and sticking with it.
We only have a few minutes left, but if there's any last words or any other pieces of advice you guys feel like has helped you along the way, or learnings from other people in the community, or readers, or any last tidbits of advice that you can give.
I think for me,
Jennifer,
one of the personal life tips I've lived is you're talking about releasing toxic energy, and whether it was in a professional environment or with personal relationships, it was the evolution of giving myself permission to be that's okay. We go through evolutions of periods in our time. You've talked about your daughter. You weren't wanting to do as much, then, social media. I certainly have found myself wanting to shift and be a little bit more in the limelight. And other times, no, I really just want to disconnect from public and really just, for lack of a better way of saying it, do me and not judge other people. I know a lot of moms judge each other, unfortunately. That's just been the way that it is. But if we actually really just acknowledge, like, it's okay to just do you, and I'm not judging anybody for it. When we have compassion for other people, we have compassion for ourselves.
I love that. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories and insight I hope this was helpful for everybody, and thanks for having us. Great job, guys.